Hello and welcome to Lost in Chronologically Lost, episode 50. We made it, the big 5-0. Where this time we finally get to see Sun and Jin reunited.
It was really, really good. I think the show tried a little too hard to make it even better and did some unnecessary things.
Yeah, I could have done without a subplot here, but
yeah,
I think we'll get to that here.
There was a really funny moment for me when they reunited. Because there was that, that sonic fence between them.
And you think the sonic fence is going to stop?
Well, right before they do it, right before they do it, I'm like, we hear the mercenaries say, "Oh, turn off the sonic fence," and we don't get confirmation that they did, and I'm like, "Oh no, don't do it!"
Yeah, it's every time I watch that, even though I know they get reunited, I have that little flinch of like, "Oh no, they're going to hit the sonic fence," but
that kills people.
No.
Actually, it didn't kill
they don't.
Kyle.
They're fine. Or that other lady who walked through it, or whoever. Has it ever actually killed anyone?
It doesn't seem pleasant.
No. But anyway, so where do we start with these episodes, Matthew?
Well, we start with Sun, telling Jack and Hurley that they are candidates, and at the moment, none of them have any idea what to say about that.
Yeah, and then we get a weird, semi-flashback of Alana talking to Jacob, and I guess it's just put here because it's clear that she's directly saying exactly what happens in that flashback at the current time, which is why it's put here.
Sure.
But it's still,
who
kind of an awkward flashback.
Who would possibly know when it was set?
Well, I assume it would be set sometime soon after he visited her in the hospital.
I guess.
Anyways,
so she says Richard will know, Ricardus will know what to do because Jacob said Ricardus because Jacob thinks in Latin.
Right, and, but Richard's having an existential crisis, and it's like, no, we're all dead, this is hell.
Yeah, because
it's just it's just memeing on dumb Lost
biggest
fans.
Lost fan, number one fan, they put him on the show and let him say his favorite fan theory.
But Alana's still like, nah, Richard knows. It's going to be fine.
They've literally left the island.
Yeah.
Anyway, Richard, he just wants to go and listen to Mr. Smokey. And, what if Jacob meant that's what they would know to do? It's, ends up changing. It's one of those things where I don't think we ever actually see Richard start to know what they should do. But, maybe just, giving Ilana that suggestion, pushed things in the right direction, like when he told Hurley to take Jack to the lighthouse. I don't think that, by the end of these episodes, I don't think that I should be waiting for Richard to figure out what they're actually supposed to do.
Right. And then we just see Hurley speaking Spanish to someone who we'll find out later is Isabella.
And I didn't get it here, but then right before the reveal, I called it and I actually messaged you just to tell you, oh shit, no, this is about to happen.
Yeah, you guessed it 5 seconds before it happened.
Let me tell you, I have a habit of that. Once something is about to happen, I just get oh, this is what they're going for, this is the vibe. Once, every clue is in place except actually seeing it happen. Which means, I don't get the satisfaction of calling something far in advance, but I also don't get to be blown away when it actually gets said.
Yeah. And then we cut to the submarine that is spying on Flock's group. And so, the smoke monster is talking to Jin about candidates, and it's like, well, everyone whose name is written on that cave has to go together.
Yep. And it's okay, so my thought here is, all the names that aren't crossed out, doesn't it mean that Smokey could also just cross the rest of them out? Kill them?
We saw, you can, again, if you freeze frame that cave, you can see that the name Tunde is crossed out, and he did kill Mr. Echo, so...
Well, I guess I think he does not consider it strictly necessary to his plans. He thinks he can do it without killing them.
Right, and then we get this weird-ass Saeed plot that did not need to happen of, he no longer feels any emotion, which is real,
it's not,
okay.
I just feel like we already, first half of the show gave us so much Saeed angst and so much Saeed redemption That,
I'm also like, we're in the second half of season 6. We don't need any more subplots.
Yeah, like, at this point, I just want to see... I feel like, Jack, main character, okay, he falls apart while they're off the island. I didn't need Saeed to also do that. Saeed was supposed to be my rock. Anyway, so, well, Jin wants to leave, because he's like, I want to find Sun. I don't give a shit about any of this, which, totally justified. Then they just get all tranquilized.
Yep, and they captured Jin.
Why actually did they want Jin? I just realized I'm not sure I ever got that.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that in 1 minute here. Anyway, so then Richard digs up Isabella's necklace that he buried 150 years ago.
I watched that thinking, I'm supposed to remember this, aren't I? Well, I feel like you're supposed to see it this episode, but for me, I'm like, I don't...
Yeah, for most people, they saw it 10 minutes ago. You saw it several months ago.
There was a locket, right? I think?
Yeah.
I saw it almost a year ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it has been a while.
Anyway, Hurley... Oh yeah, so he shouts...
Well, first he yells saying that he's changed his mind. And he's like, you said the offer would stand no matter how long, but...
But Hurley... He shows up to just say, yeah, Isabella sent me, and we just get an incredible scene of emotional catharsis that, we have been waiting for a long time, and despite it being so long ago, I honestly still, borderline cried during this scene.
Oh, it's such, yeah, it's really a kind of a testament to Lost writing, where originally they introduced Jacob, and he's literally just... some guy who works for Ben, who just shows up in the background, and then by 3 seasons later, you're crying over what he's going through.
I mean Richard. You said Jacob.
Oh,
well,
okay.
Yeah,
well, forget. Yeah,
you know,
that's what I meant. I meant to say Richard.
I feel like
whatever.
Some Lost fans I get would complain about what are the answers you get with Jacob, but I think the mystery of Richard and then what we got for who he is and why he's there is totally perfect.
Yeah.
You can't.
And anyways, yeah. So
anyway,
so Isabella's like, you have to stop the Man in Black because he's horrible.
Yeah. Who would have thought? And it's just nice. She thinks his English is beautiful, and Hurley translates all this, and then we kind of also she says, it wasn't his fault that she died. It was her time, and it's in some sense, it's not any better for Richard. He still doesn't have her. He still has to keep going, but it gives him that, it gives him a little more strength.
But I think that now he's fine. I think now is when he finally gets over his guilt. Because you remember, way back in episode 2, the reason he's immortal was because, he asked Jacob for anything, and Jacob said he couldn't, Jacob said he couldn't bring back his wife, and he couldn't make sure he never goes to hell.
Also, such an interesting parallel. I will give the Saeed plot this. That is, Saeed, the Man in Black saying he will give Saeed Nadia is such an interesting parallel to Jacob saying, nope, I can't give you Isabella.
Yeah, and then Richard, because he, is full of that good old 1800s Catholic guilt, is like, okay, well, if I'm going to go to hell, then I want to live forever, so that never happens. And it's I think he's finally letting go of that, where he's finally found closure in his life.
Mm-hmm. And we see him putting the necklace back around his neck, and it is a cross, but I think it's a multi-layered symbol in this case, where, yes, this show has a lot of Christian imagery and philosophy, but it's also, I think, in some sense, a symbol of his love for Isabella, and also, I think it's faith not really to Jesus, but to Jacob.
Right, yeah, at this point. But it's also it came from a woman from the 1800s in Spain. Of course it's going to be a cross.
Yeah. Also, is this the first time we get... Is this the first, and is this the only time we get the phrase, the Man in Black?
I believe... it might be. I believe the fans and then the writers have been calling him that. Just when you see people oh, who's that guy with Jacob, and they've said, oh, it's the Man in Black. It's kind of a thing, and people just come to call him that a lot, just in my head, just because that's what I
don't
think.
Because it takes too long. It's too long of a phrase. I'm impatient.
Right, but when I but you see when I write it in my notes, I just write MIB, so it's shorter for me.
So it's Will Smith.
Right, of course.
Anyway, so we get some Ilana and Ben talking about whether they can wait for Richard to come back, whether Hurley will get him back, and
And Ilana's like, yeah, he'll do it, don't worry.
And Ben does not think he will. And Sun just kind of stabs the table.
Yeah, and she decides to go do some gardening to work out this stress.
It's a nice season 6 book ending that we kind of return to a place from season 1.
Yeah.
And Jack comes to talk to her, and he's just like, "Hey, have you considered giving a shit about plot?" And she says, "No, I do not give a shit."
No, I have subplot to worry about.
Yes, but
I've been worrying about the subplot for 2 seasons.
The subplot is the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. Anyway, so Jack leaves her alone, and then the Man in Black shows up and is like, "Hey, I found Jin." And technically, he's not lying. He doesn't know that Jin's been captured yet.
He is very manipulative, and on some level, yes, this is just trying to trick her into coming. But in this specific case, as far as Jin being captured is just an unrelated thing. He literally is just being completely straightforward. He does have Jin, and he will take her to Jin. This isn't manipulative because he's doing what he says he's doing.
Right, but she's like, "Yeah, I don't trust you because of all the murder," and runs away.
I love this because I've been so worried. Who can I rely on to not fall for his tricks? Because I lost Saeed, and Claire was lost a long time ago, and it's because you remember, I think last episode or the one before I talked about, who can I rely on to not fall for him? And I'm so glad to see that yes, I absolutely can rely on Sun.
But then she hits her head, which starts the worst subplot of season 6, which is that
when I first saw it, I was like, you know what? Maybe if this is leading somewhere interesting, it'll be good. But it was just nothing. There was just no it feels like soap opera writing, and we didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, it's anyway. Then Ben finds her and is like, "Okay, whatever. Let's get you some help."
Yep.
Yeah, and then the Man in Black shows back up to his group and finds everyone tranquilized.
He got boomed.
Yeah, and Jin wakes up in the brainwashing room.
And he turns on the brainwasher, and it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And as he tries to leave, then that girl Zoe tases him.
Oh yeah, it's in my notes here. I do remember why they needed him, because he worked with Dharma and surveyed, the electromagnetism pockets. He's like,
yep.
Yeah, you want to find those. And
yep,
he wants to talk to Widmore.
Yeah, and then we get Claire asking if her name is on the wall, but it has been crossed out. Yeah. They won't explain directly why Claire's is crossed out, but they'll kind of explain why, indirectly later. Okay. So don't worry about it.
Sure.
Don't worry about it for now.
And she just kind of talks frustrated about, Aaron won't know her, but then Smokey's like, no, but we do need you, and, to get other people on the plane. And then he basically says, if you want to kill Kate after that, sure.
Yeah, and because he's like, Kate's name isn't on the wall either. Again, they'll explain that one. Don't worry, just
okay.
It'll all be explained, sort of.
And then we kind of get Ben whining, he didn't do it. Sun, he literally found Sun.
Well, before that, they're like, okay, we're gonna have to go, paddle across to that other island, and then they're like, why can't you just fly over it? He's like, do you think if I could just do that, I would still be here?
Yeah.
So this is a confirmation that he cannot fly over water. But this makes season 5 make less sense, because there's the thing where he's on Hydra Island posing as Locke, and then Lapidus and Sun arrive on the main island, and he shows up there as Christian, and then he suddenly appears back there as Locke, and it's like, you didn't have time to paddle a boat that fast. You were clearly supposed to be flying, and then now you're saying you can't. They did not think about this through, which is why that season 5 scene is confusing to me.
I mean, I feel like maybe it's not water so much as just, can't leave the island as smoke just because,
But no, he's literally saying between the main island and Hydra Island, he has to take a boat, which is exactly the thing that happened.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
In season... Sure. Yeah, it's the exact same scenario.
Okay.
He cannot fly over that body of water.
I got it. We have identified the lost plot hole. Time to email all the writers.
It's just confusing to me because that plot hole shows up so late in season 5. I'm like, you think that by the end of season 5 they had the writing figured out, but clearly they did not. I guess yeah. Someone went, why can't he just fly over the water? And I guess they were like, oh, I guess we should write that in that he can't.
Yeah.
Like.
So then, the thing about, I guess the thing I realized here is with Sun, we do have the kind of parallel to Sun and Jin in season 1, where like Jin was the one who couldn't speak English, but we're not getting anything out of that here. Still, they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Like, there's one good scene that comes out of this, and I don't think it actually needed her to be mute. Or, like, well, not mute in English.
No. Anyways, yeah, so Richard shows back up, and then I forget what Richard does.
They just,
he's like, Richard's like, yeah, we have to destroy the plane.
Yeah. And we get, Smokey going up to the sound barriers and being like, hey, I want Jin
I'm declaring war.
And Widmore's like, I don't have Jin. And Smokey's like, okay, I'm going to murder you.
Yeah.
Okay, he says this is war, but yeah.
Yeah, and so Sun does not like the let's blow up the plane plan because she wants to leave still.
Yeah. Meanwhile, then we get a bit of Widmore being like, why did you take Jin so early in our plans? And she's like, I'm not a mercenary. And
well, well, to be fair, she says you should have put a mercenary charge, not a geophysicist, which is like, but then on the one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, last time he sent out a crew of people, it was the scientists who had the better plans than the mercenaries.
Anyway, they need to go get Desmond. I totally called that it was Desmond.
Oh, you absolutely called it. I was like, in my mind, I wanted to set up a bunch of arguments as to why it wasn't Desmond. I'm like, why would he be so locked and padded? Wouldn't just a single lock do or whatever? They never really explained why he needed to be locked in there so securely. Like, surely just a normal locked room would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. But since you were right, I didn't say anything because you got it right off the bat.
Anyway, Widmore actually shows Jin pictures of his kid, and it's like, like the best manipulators, sometimes they just do things that are good, to lull you in. And like, yeah, he may be planning evil things, but it is absolutely a good and nice thing to show this to Jin.
Yeah, and then he says, if everyone will die if the smoke monster is able to leave the island.
I think this is true, right?
Think what is true?
That everyone will die if he leaves the island.
You think so?
Is it?
I mean, what do you think?
Oh, shut up.
What do you mean, shut up? No, it's a serious question.
I think that Jacob doesn't want to let him leave for good reason. I don't think that's arbitrary. I don't think he's just being salty about his mom. And I think, we get, like, Michael's ghost being like, can't let this shit happen. Well, I guess he's like, don't blow up the plane, which, I mean, Smokey wouldn't be able to leave anyway. Dude. Ah.
Well, yeah, but it's the thing. Do you really think that the smoke monster will kill everyone if he leaves? Like,
I don't think he'd kill everyone. I think everyone would die.
Okay, so you're thinking it's in, like, some sort of magical way.
Yeah, I think that the island is the plug on all the evil, and Smokey leaving would somehow, undo that plug, because, like, he's tied to all of that.
Okay, I can see that.
But I don't know, because now you're making me question everything.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see.
The thing about what Smokey will do if he leaves is that he doesn't know what he wants. Okay, you get off the island, what the hell are you going to do now?
Go to Tunisia?
What?
Yeah, it's true. He has no plan after that.
Are you going to go watch a movie? Are you going to talk to people? Are you going to go get coffee? Are you going to go learn to play an instrument? What do you want to do? Are you going to still fly around as Smoke and kill people? Or are you just going to chill as Locke?
To be fair, and if he is stuck in Locke's body, does that mean he'll age with Locke's body? Because Locke is already pretty old. So, at best, he's got, like, what, maybe 3 decades?
I could give him 4.
Maybe maybe he could reach 100.
I mean, can the smoke monster get sick when he's in human form?
I don't know. I mean, he can survive a stab wound. I think if he can pull out a knife and have the wound instantly heal, I think he'll just instantly heal from
What if he only heals?
Cancerous cells.
What if he only heals because he's on the island?
That's another good question. Like, it raises a lot of questions here. I will say some of them will be answered later, some of them won't. Some of them are literally just speculation.
I don't think they're gonna answer like if he only heals on the island.
Right. So anyway, then we have Jack giving Sun a writing pad so she can communicate.
And the only scene.
It's a nice scene, but I'm also like, why couldn't we just have a conversation?
Yeah. But see, I like this scene because I just like seeing like a moment where we just get to see two of our main characters being friends, especially because when you get like Jack and Kate interacting, it's like all
relationship issues.
It's either relationship issues or plot, and then it's like Jack and Sun. It's just like there's friends. There's no relationship subtext because they don't. It's just like they're just friends and they're relying on each other, and it makes me happy.
Right. Anyway, so what's really funny about this scene with the writing pad is that whenever Sun turns it around, she's always holding it in like the bottom right corner of the screen, right? But at that time, ABC was launching a new show, the revival of the show V, this time starring the actress who played Juliet. And they were like trying to make a big spectacle out of it, like, oh, we're bringing back this classic sci-fi show, it's going to be a big whole thing. And so they literally had a countdown as to when that show would start. And they had a countdown timer. And that countdown timer blocked all of the writing pad's answers. And then also, if you were still watching in a 4:3 TV, which it was 2010, so a lot of people still were, like half her writing was just cut off anyways. Because season 6 was actually broadcast in HD.
And it's like, I don't think she ever says anything that important anyway.
But imagine watching the show and you can't even see what the character's saying because of a promotional ad.
I mean, it makes me think, like, shouldn't they have made it so... I don't know, made it so... Also, it's funny that, like, Lost, once the biggest show, is now, like, they're making it worse just to promote something else.
Yeah, no, I mean, ABC apologized, and Lost was so big that they literally aired a rerun. They were literally airing reruns of the same episode, like, 3 days after it airs originally, so people just cut it then.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like, it makes me think, like, what if they actually had a plot where Sun needs to say something, and it's like, I don't know if that plot would be good, but it would do something with this, and they just don't.
Right. Anyway, Jack promises, he's like, hey, we'll find Jin, and then we'll leave, and we'll do that for sure.
Good promise. I support that promise.
Same. And then Sawyer is like, well, let's just hope Whitmore killed the Man in Black, and then the Man in Black shows up, and it's like, well, so that didn't happen.
Yep. And then we're like, oh, where's Saeed? And he's swimming, and it's kind of funny that Desmond falls on...
It's a really awkward swim.
Desmond falls on the dock, and they just kind of stare at each other, and Desmond doesn't say a word because he's completely zonked out.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Desmond wakes up, and he finds out he is back on the island.
And he just attacks him.
Yeah, he is pissed. Like as he said, he was done with that island. He spent 3 years there. He was done, and someone brought him back. Yeah. Like, ugh.
Dick move. Whitmore, real jerk. Real jerk.
Right.
Anyway,
so they're performing some electromagnetic experiments,
and
the dude in the test chamber dies.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. I mean, that is a big ass solenoid.
Yeah.
That is.
And Whitmore's like, Desmond, you'll be alive probably.
That actually is like a way to generate a ton of an electromagnetic field.
Oh, okay.
Although, I think
I had no idea if that was real or not. I was just like, okay, science machine.
It's
good.
No,
fine.
It's like it basically is real. But then the funny thing is, if Desmond stood like away from directly in between them in the middle, it would have gotten so much weaker, and it wouldn't have affected him as much. Like,
well, he was like trying to get through on the door side.
Like,
he was.
I feel like right as it starts to really turn on, he like walks into the direct middle, and like that's where it's strongest.
Right. Well, okay.
Anyway,
Anyway, so they do that whole experiment, and
he lives.
Desmond survives, and now is suddenly very cooperative with whatever's going on.
Something weird happened here because they talk about Desmond is someone who survived a major electromagnetic event, and when that happened, his mind traveled through time. So I can't help but wonder if something is going on here.
I wonder if that will be answered in a future episode.
Yeah. I mean, already telling me things that it's a future episode, not a past episode, although obviously if it was a past episode, I would already know.
Well, yeah, if it was a past episode, you would have already seen
it.
I mean, we do have several more episodes to go here, so...
Yeah.
Who can say? Except for me, because I already know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. You're a real jerk, too.
Yeah. So then Saeed shows up and kills one of the guards and sends Zoe away. And he's like, you're coming with me now, Desmond. And Desmond's like...
There's a bit you're skipping over that,
Oh,
well,
okay.
like, Widmore talks to Desmond and says, okay... Oh, wait, no, this was before he got charged, but it was Widmore talking, yeah, I need you to make a sacrifice, and I know what sacrifice is, because I've sacrificed all this, don't let it be for nothing. And, once he wakes up, he's just totally chill, and then Saeed is just like, come with me.
Yeah, and Desmond's like, yeah, sure, fine.
Desmond, I think Desmond, if Smokey showed up as Smoke, not as Locke, and said, hey, I need you to pop over here with me, Desmond would be like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Anyway, so then we get to the next episode here, episode 94, and it starts with a really sad scene of Hurley at Libby's grave.
It's still so fucked up that they killed her and Ana Lucia like that. And I really like this is season 6 writing where they know that they are ending and resolving this shit. Because, the feeling of losing someone like Libby is like, it's never a resolved feeling in life, but they do kind of give it some closure, like, in the way that they can, and I think that's really good. Like, they address it in the final season. Because they know that it's the final season.
Yeah, and it's just, he says, oh, he's been visited by a lot of people, but it would really be nice if she talked to him, which rips my heart out.
I think, because Michael, explains later, like, he's one of the ones that isn't allowed to move on, and I think Libby was allowed to move on, and that's good.
Yeah, and it explains why, although it is kind of then confusing. It's like, why couldn't Charlie move on? It felt like Charlie was fine with dying if it was to help Claire and Aaron and everything.
It's a mix of if you're a good person and if, the island knows that you'll be helpful. Like,
But to be fair, he was seeing them even off the island. He saw Charlie off the island. He saw Ana Lucia off the island.
I feel like the island is, what causes this in some metaphysical sense, even if the ghosts can leave the island. Although I feel like was Charlie a candidate? I feel like he would have been. He was just,
Yes, he was. You can see Pace on the cave.
And I doubt Libby is the thing.
I think actually she was.
Huh. Okay.
Yep, and I think Ana Lucia was as well.
I can buy that too. But
I'm pretty sure any major character was, pretty much. You could see their name somewhere. Yeah.
Well, anyway, meanwhile, Ilana wants to go get some dynamite, and then we see Michael. Also, wait, I almost forgot to mention, when Michael died, Christian told him, like, you can go now, and no, turns out he couldn't go.
No.
But I feel like, Michael did a lot of bad shit I'm kind of okay with.
Well, to be fair, that could also imply, since that obviously wasn't the smoke monster because he can't travel over water, is that it was the actual ghost of Christian Shepherd. And, like, Christian Shepherd couldn't move on either, perhaps. So he's like, oh, you can go now to, like...
To where I am.
Where I am, which is, like,
also,
this
good
plane of existence.
I want to make. We know that the characters of Lost are not in purgatory because we literally know which characters are in purgatory.
Yeah, now we can literally see, oh, hey, yeah, are they in purgatory? It's like, well, Michael is.
Yeah.
The rest of them aren't.
Yeah, so then, Michael...
He says, yeah, don't blow up the plane. Blowing up the plane is bad.
That is a terrible idea, you dumbass. And, Hurley does not tell Jack who he's talking to because, that's just a conversation you don't want to deal with having.
Right. Is this where they explain that, oh, yeah, the whispers are the people who can't move on?
No, it's in a bit. Okay. Yeah, you told me that the explanation they do give for that makes no sense. You're right.
Like, yeah, why would Ben tell Rousseau, oh, if you hear whispers, run away. He has no control over that. The others have no control over the whispers. What?
I just feel like it's kind of a lame answer. Like, we already know...
I think it's a cool answer, but with the worst possible setup.
I think that in terms of being narratively satisfying, it's not really much. Like, we already know that there are ghosts. I guess maybe, because the thing is, you've told me since, like, episode 1, yeah, ghosts can show up because we see, like, Jacob's real mom show up. So I've just kind of watched this whole show already thinking, like, yeah, ghosts can just show up. Maybe it's a more interesting reveal if I didn't already have that. And
but again, you see in episode 1, Jacob's mom shows up. You even see it going through. Ben's mom shows up. Then and then Hurley can see all these freaking different ghosts.
So my point is, we know that there are whispers, and that's one of those mysteries that makes you think, ooh, what are they? You know, you imagine the possibilities. Anything is possible. And then I just feel like it tends to be uninteresting if the answer is just something you basically already knew.
Well, I get that.
Like,
most people, though, were thinking along the lines of, how do the others control the whispers? Because we always related the whispers to the others. And the answer turning out to not have anything to do with the others. It's kind of like
when they first put in the whispers, it feels like the writers were probably figuring it was probably just the others watching them and whispering.
Yeah.
But then
so then Alana got dynamite, and then she blows up. Rest in peace.
Really? Like, she's more of a significant character than Arst. This feels like a joke that isn't funny because we're kind of trying to take things seriously here.
Hey, and it's like, and they're like, oh yeah, they admitted they killed Alana because they didn't have time for her anymore. And it's like, hey, maybe you would have time for her if you didn't extend that stupid temple subplot, do the stupid Saeed has no emotion subplot, do the stupid son can't speak English subplot. Maybe you cut up those dumb subplots. You could have kept Alana around. I actually liked Alana. I didn't have any problem with her character.
She was likable. She was cool. She, was one of those people getting stuff done. I mean, yeah, she was...
Her actress is very attractive. I'd like to see more of her on screen, please.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like they kind of just... Like, when it just feels dissonant when we see everyone else kind of reacting to the fact that she is dead in a way where it's like, we don't even have time for that emotion, and it's just... Like,
they all just are like, whatever.
In a certain sense, it literally is an ass pull to get themselves out of having to resolve anything with Alana in a way where it worked with Arst because Arst was kind of a joke character and he was kind of funny.
Well, Arst was no one.
And they put in effort to set up the joke there, and they didn't here.
But with Alana, they put in the effort to set up a character and then decided, nah.
Yeah.
Like...
So then...
Anyway, then we get... the Man in Black being like, we all have to leave together.
Yeah, we have to wait for Hurley, Son, and Jack.
Yeah.
And then Saeed is back and he wants to talk privately because he's showing them that he has got Desmond here. And Desmond is just fine with being tied up.
Yeah, and then we get Richard being like, okay, well, we have to go get more dynamite, I guess. Let's just go.
Hurley ends up saying, yeah, let's go with him and do that. And I mean, you can tell that he's playing him somehow.
Yeah. So yeah, then Desmond's like, well, I don't have anywhere to run to, and Man in Black's like, yeah, okay, fair enough, I'll cut you free.
You know what a character arc resolution for Desmond. You know, after everything that frustrated me about him in the backstories.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've long since established that I started to like Desmond, but, like, when we first got Desmond, on some level, I was happy just because, like, he's a good character, nice to have more of him.
Yeah, and then Desmond's like, oh yeah, Whitmore just hit me with a fuck ton of electromagnetic energy.
Yeah, but he doesn't say what he saw.
No, he does not, but...
Anyway, Smokey wants to go take a walk with him.
Yeah, and then we get Ben wondering, like, if the island was fine with just blowing up Alana, what's it going to do to us? Which is an absolutely fair question.
It's almost but it's also doesn't make sense for it to be done with her.
Yeah, but it's just like, don't worry, guys, the writers have decided they have time for you.
Yep.
So...
Anyway,
then Hurley blows up all the dynamite.
Yep. It's season 6, we gotta have a big explosion and someone running away from it dramatically.
Yeah, and this is finally season 6, so you can finally blow up your source of all dynamite, because you're not going to need it again.
Anyway, Miles is just like, why? And Michael, Hurley is like, Michael told me to, and we sort of get another moment where Miles just finds it weird that Hurley kind of has a way better talking to dead people skill than him.
Well, yeah. Well, he's like, you just listen to whatever dead people tell you to, and he says dead people are more honest than alive people, which is honestly
makes sense.
It's like that's kind of like it's simple, but it's weirdly deep. I don't know.
You know, I gotta say, it feels like they don't really have anything to do with Miles as a character now, and it kind of feels like they just keep him around because he's kind of fun. And I am fine with, like, I'm not gonna complain that they shouldn't have kept Miles around because I like Miles, but I, would appreciate it if they did a little more with him.
Yeah, the thing is, they kind of already resolved his character at the end of season 5, so it's kind of like, he's just there.
Pretty much.
I mean, they used him to figure out that Ben killed Jacob, and that's...
Yeah, it's kind of just like, we don't want to get rid of him, because when we do give him dialogue, it's fun. But it's like, it feels like there is very much, at this point, a divide between him and the real main characters of the show. Although I actually do like how the show handles sort of the real main characters a little bit later.
Yeah. Anyway, so then the Man in Black sees Teen Jacob as a vision.
There's also Desmond saying, there's nothing special about him, the island has it in for all of them. Which, that statement actually resonates with Smokey. And still no idea what that Teen Jacob means.
I honestly don't remember either.
Oh man, we can be surprised.
I don't even remember if it gets answered why he's seeing the ghost, other than just
it would be so
Jacob is special.
It would be so easy to make it Smokey's guilt, but other people can see him.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Richard's like, okay, fine, we don't have dynamite. Well, we're gonna go get grenades then.
He is a man on a mission, I guess, and Hurley.
And then Hurley's like, why don't we just go talk to the smoke monster?
Yeah. Which I gotta say, I don't think that's the best plan. I think that Hurley kind of dropped the ball on this one. And especially because we don't really get something out of deciding to talk to the smoke monster. This more just serves as the plot excuse to get them, the whole gang, reunited so they can steal a boat together.
Yeah, so they decide to split up between those who think they should go talk to him and those who think they should go blow up the plane. Pretty much everyone goes with Hurley except for Ben and Miles.
I have more to say about that. I really feel like it's an interesting character arc. It would be so interesting to see, what if we actually try to negotiate with the smoke monster, talk more and understand what he wants, although I do think we'll get more of that in later episodes. And I also think it's an interesting character arc thing that Hurley, is starting to, I mean, we got something that people say, people listen to you, Hurley, which honestly makes me think maybe the show will play with my expectations and Hurley will become the replacement for Jacob because people do listen to him. I think Hurley and Jack are the main options. So I think it's interesting that Hurley, it's an interesting moment that Hurley fakes talking to Jacob, and I just think that it feels like they wrote that in because not with a real purpose thematically, but just they had to get the gang reunited, and that's kind of annoying to me.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Maybe some later stuff will pick up on that subplot, but I feel like, it already just feels a little dissonant that then the actual go talk to the smoke monster doesn't really result in, it doesn't feel like there was much accomplished by that. It was just get everyone together. Anyway, right. Moving on. Miles is going with Richard.
Yep, and Ben's going with Richard, which, that makes sense. I get it. And, I like the thing we see with Jack, where he's like, I'm going to follow now because it turns out I can't fix things, but maybe you can fix things, so I'm going to follow someone else.
I don't think Jack's character arc isn't complete here. That's not the end for him, but it is a state of change. It's one of his steps.
Yeah.
Because I do think
and then we get the whole thing.
Jack does need to be a leader, but, he's, I think it'll be valuable to him to, see what it's like to not.
Yeah. And then we get the whispers again, and that's where we get the whispers are people who can't move on. And then Michael's like, oh, Locke is over there.
Yep.
But then we do get him to say, if you see Libby again, tell her I'm very sorry. Which is it's good to see, because we've seen Michael have all this guilt, but we haven't actually really seen him say that he was sorry. The only times he said he was sorry, he was like, I'm sorry, but I have to do it for Walt. I'm sorry, but I have to do this.
I think that Michael can't really redeem himself, in that there isn't really such thing as redeeming yourself for such an unnecessary murder, but I think that putting a standard of like, oh, they have to redeem themselves is also not really like the right way of looking at that kind of situation morally. So I'm not. I don't
know if he has to actually redeem himself. What they said is it's people who can't.
Well, yeah, I'm not. I mean, that's my point. I'm saying it's not about whether he redeems himself. I think that when I look at this scene, it doesn't give me closure in that I think, okay, I forgive you, Michael, so much as it gives me closure.
Well, no, I don't forgive Michael for killing Libby. Still,
it gives me closure because it feels like he finally moved past like. It feels like. It feels satisfying because Michael moved past everything enough that he can look back on what he did and understand just straight up it was wrong. And, you know, you don't forgive him for that, but, you know, that is, you know, his character moving forward in a way that's realistic.
Yeah. So then we see that the Man in Black has taken Desmond to this deep well.
And this scene made me think in a lot of ways because it's like, oh, Widmore wants Desmond to do something with resisting electricity, and the wells are where there's all the electromagnetism. And what if like does Smokey also want Desmond to do something with that power? What if like do they want him to do the same thing, or are they going to do different things with it? And then, no, he's just going to throw Desmond in the well.
Right.
And I don't even mind that. It's funny.
Yeah, and he talks the whole thing where he's like, Widmore's only interested in power, and you know the Man in Black asks, he's like, you're out here alone with me. And you're not afraid. And Desmond's like, yeah, no, I'm not. That's whatever.
Honestly, Desmond without fear is hitting me harder than Locke without fear.
I just think it has to do with it. Locke without fear was like a man with a plan. Again, okay. obviously it was the Man in Black, but he acted like he just knew what he was doing. He had a plan. Whereas Desmond without fear is the kind of without fear where to him it doesn't matter what happens.
But I feel like it's not like a nihilistic nothing matters not caring what happens so much as it's acceptance.
Exactly, yeah.
And I do, you know, I feel like I might have even just talked about this before, but it's still on my mind. The reason that Locke without fear felt so weird to me even before I knew it was the Man in Black is because Locke was supposed to be the one in tune with the island. And I feel like even though the Man in Black says Locke was a sucker, I believe Locke was in tune with the island. And because I saw, you know, the first episode of Chronologically Lost, I knew that Jacob actually was like the deepest connected to the island and genuinely magical and important. So it felt so weird to me, like if Locke knows what he's doing, why does he want to kill Jacob? Because I know Jacob actually is good. And I mean, it makes sense because that wasn't actually Locke. But it like I feel like that was a contradiction for me, where if you were watching it in release order and you didn't know that Jacob actually was that important, then you would just take it as, you know, Locke is being confident now.
Yeah, that's a fair point there.
Yeah, I think that's why it did feel weird to me. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so then we get the two groups meeting up, and Jack is like, I'm going to go talk to him alone, because I have questions.
I like this, especially because I think after the way this episode ends, we're going to get more of it. Like, Jack is our main character, Smokey is our main villain, and I think there is a lot of potential in just more of them interacting and sort of conflicting morally.
Yeah, and he finally gets the answer. He's like, when I was running through the jungle looking for my dad, was that you? And he's like, yep. Yeah, and he's like, well, he asks why. He says, because you needed water.
Which makes sense, and that's how Smokey operates. He's helping people on some level, but it's for his goals.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is where he says, you know, Locke wasn't a believer, he was a sucker.
Locke got very magically healed, I'm just saying.
He did get very magically healed, but it still ultimately... his belief in the island is still ultimately what kind of led to his pathetic death. Even if Ben hadn't showed up to murder him, he was going to kill himself because of it.
The way I see it, the way it's justifying itself to me, is that yes, Locke was that important, but the island doesn't care. The island doesn't look at important people and say, I'm giving you happy endings. The island looks at important people and uses them to move things along. I mean, same with Alana, I guess. She was important, but when it's done with you, it's done with you.
Yeah, and then we get Claire and Jack meeting, and they know they're siblings. This is it.
I wanted this for so long. I kind of wanted it in better circumstances than with, you know, all of Smokey's manipulations, but it's still... yeah.
Yeah, but it's also like, I think what we were looking for was for one of them to be like, you're my brother or you're my sister. But here it's like they meet and they already both know, so it's kind of just like kind of awkward.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unrealistic, but like we don't get the reaction.
Right.
Like because the way I always wanted it was that they both see Christian and it's like, that's my dad. That's your dad. That's my dad. I think that would have been the best way to do it.
Oh, for sure, but it's season 6. We got to wrap things up at this point.
And we literally can't show Christian anymore. Well, we can't show Smokey as Christian anymore because he's stuck.
Yeah,
and so
she's like, "Oh, so you're with him now?"
Like the moment we let him talk to you, and that's just wrong. I mean, that's wrong about Sun. That's wrong about Sawyer, and it ends up even being wrong about her.
Right. Yeah. So then Sawyer is filling Hurley in on the plan.
And Hurley,
he's like, "Okay, we're gonna get everyone to leave, but we're not gonna bring Saeed or Claire." Yeah.
So Saeed is just our Anakin here.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Zoe shows up and is like, "Hey, give us Desmond, or we're gonna just bomb you to death, basically." And the Man in Black's like, "Okay, bye."
Because I think you cut out for me. Okay, you just cut out for me for like 10 seconds. I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, okay, my Audacity was recording though, so I got the.
Yeah, I mean, you'll just cut this out.
Yeah.
Just say what after like the Saeed stuff. Just say all that again.
So Zoe shows up and is like, "Hey, we want Desmond back, and we'll just bomb you to death if you don't give it to us."
It's just like, she shows up alone and has them fire a fucking missile. I like Zoe. I don't think the show really has time to do much with her, and ultimately she's a pretty simple character who's just there to be a sub-villain. But I like the energy of walking in alone because you can make them fire a fucking missile.
And then, to be fair, the Man in Black is able to up her energy by just instantly just crushing the means of communication for that and being like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna just take the bombs instead."
But you know what?
It's fine.
Like, this is not the only time they fire a missile.
No, I believe it's actually mortar strikes, not missiles exactly.
Sure.
But I mean, yeah, same thing. It's an explosive weapon that's going to hit you. Yeah.
We are getting all out on explosions in season 6. We're not getting the volcano erupting because you've told me that, but explosions.
They wanted it. They wanted the volcano. They just ran out of budget.
Another thing. They cut out some plot lines.
I don't know if cutting out plot. I think that's more of a special effects issue.
Yeah. Okay. If they cut out plot lines in terms of like lower the episode count by an episode or two, then that would give you some more budget. Whereas
that's true. Yeah.
That's not replacing with other plot lines. That just shorten it.
That reminds me of this other show that I really enjoy, which I made you watch, Legend of Korra, where they one season the executives they reduced their budget, but they still demanded the same amount of episodes, so they had to make a clip show instead.
Studios, man.
Yeah. Anyways, so the main crew is getting their plan going together. Sawyer and Kate are going to go get the boat, and everyone else will go to the shore to join them.
You know why I really like this? Because this might be the first time in Season 6 where we get our core cast being the ones who are deciding on a plan and of their own will doing it. Like, a lot of Season 6 has been so many powerful forces, Man in Black, Richard, or like powerful forces like Man in Black or Widmore, people who know Magical Island stuff like Richard or Alana, or like Ghost telling Hurley what to do. It has felt like our actual main characters are just like pieces being pushed around by everyone else, and I mean, that's kind of just what the plot is at this point. But I really like that here, they are the ones with the will. They're just being like, no, like screw this. We are doing our own thing because we're the main characters.
Yeah, to be fair, though, I do think the whole they're being pushed around thing is actually intentional, whether or not you think it's good.
I mean, I would think...
It is setting up like, hey, this is like a 2,000-year-old Sinet game between these two people who are using the players as the pieces. I think Desmond...
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good because now we're getting this, because they're pushing... Like, they have been pushed around, but now they're pushing against it. That's what makes it work.
Yeah, and Desmond even says something of the sort back in season 5. He didn't know about all the whole mystical elements, but he knew about Widmore and all these Eloise Hawking and everything. And where he says, they're playing some game, and we're just the pieces. Like,
yeah,
it's and you can even bring it back to the very first episode of the show, which obviously they weren't thinking this far ahead, but they had laid at least the minimal amount of groundwork, where Locke is playing backgammon with Walt, and he explains that backgammon is such an old game, and there's two sides, one is light, one is dark, and they're going to move the pieces around, and it's something you can actually see a through line with in the show. For however much the show changes and drops things and adds different things, I think that it was always a core part of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was genuinely good that they kind of established that final layer of it, that Jacob and Smokey are playing a game to test if the people will choose to be good or not, because that really does, contextualize everything we've seen in a way that, I like that kind of thing. I mean, it's very Christian, it's very Christian philosophy, but it's one of those things where it's I think it's a philosophy that shows up in a lot of different cultures, because will people be good or bad, and the sort of onlookers, I think that shines a light on everything in a way that I think makes it more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get
and shines a dark.
Yeah, and then we get Saeed being sent to go kill Desmond,
which
and
you can't look. I know you're having your edgy arc, Saeed, but you're my favorite guy. Desmond is a great guy too. You just can't be doing that.
Yeah, and Desmond asks why, and to be fair, it is like you said, it's going to bring him back the thing he lost that was the most important in his life, but.
Desmond asks, what will you tell her about what you did to get me back? Honestly, I thought that was an excellent scene. Because...
Oh, it's brilliant.
Because characters, going through what Saeed does is something, I don't relate to it, but I do understand it, in that it's when you're in that dark of a place, you think that you have to do these things, and it's something where I watch the characters and I am I wish I could talk to the characters and explain to them why this is dumb. So I'm so happy when I see another character actually say it.
Yeah. And it's just I love the scene, but also the scene would have been better if you didn't do the stupid Saeed isn't feeling emotions. Let him feel emotions.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Sawyer and Kate, they find the sailboat, because we're finally bringing that back after season... I think it hasn't shown up since season 3.
I literally was where did we even leave that off as a plot line?
The others had it. That's where we left it off.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kate is no, we should still bring Claire, because Claire shows up.
And I do think that Claire is crazy, but I do get Kate came here for Claire. Kate the whole point was to reunite her with Aaron for Kate.
Yeah. And...
But I honestly... I understand Kate... I understand that, Kate isn't going to give up, and they resolve it fine. But honestly, I would have been, for once in my life, Team Sawyer here.
Yeah, and then, Claire says that she trusts the Man in Black because the Man in Black never abandoned her, which is...
He's the reason you got... He tricked you into getting abandoned by everyone else.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, they all leave, the whole group, and then Claire obviously sees them because she's not blind.
No one else did somehow. But this is where it really starts to hit me, our main character's doing things.
Yeah, and so she follows them to the boat. Oh, before that we get Saeed being yep, I killed Desmond, and Locke is what took you so long? He's I just had to shoot an unarmed man.
Oh, so now you're feeling things.
Yeah.
And, Smokey knows at this point.
Yeah.
If Smokey, there would be no point of showing him being suspicious of him if he wasn't, at a certain point, if Saeed actually did it, then there just wouldn't have been any reason for Smokey to be suspicious.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm not going to say anything more about that.
Anyway, so, we get,
yeah, Claire shows up at the boat.
Yeah,
and
Kate is look, Kate, look, Claire, we are doing the same thing. We're leaving the island to get you back to Aaron. Smokey is absolutely crazy. come on now. We're your friends.
And she does join them, but she says, he's going to be mad.
I'm so glad that Claire is... It's not a redemption because I don't blame Claire for a lot of what she's been through because she was manipulated into it. It was a thing that was done to her. But it's still like, okay, we're getting back to proper Claire.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like, at this moment, push came to shove, and she chose the survivors group over the smoke monster.
Yeah.
And then so they're on the boat, and Jack is like, it just doesn't feel right. Something feels off, which is like, again, imagine Jack in season 1 saying something like this.
I mean, the thing is, at this point, Jack, like, as he says, he's already been through this once. He knows that it's not right.
Yeah, and then...
I do really like his point that maybe Smokey is afraid of what happens if they stay. That's what gets me really excited for what might happen next episode.
Yeah, and so he tells Sawyer, he's like, I'm really sorry for what happened to Juliet, and then Sawyer's like, but if you're talking this nonsense, you're off my boat. And Jack says, okay, and then jumps off.
Jack's got balls, goes for it, and I mean, I do think like it. I don't think everybody is staying on the island. I think it's okay for like someone, and also very much setting up Jack being the replacement at this point. But like, it's okay for Jack to stay and everyone else to leave. Honestly, although I think Kate might stay.
Right. Okay.
Because, what is... Kate also doesn't have that much to go back to. Because if she's sending Claire back for Aaron, what does she need to do?
Well, I mean, she could still be there for Aaron. She's not as,
I know.
exactly a mother, but still is someone who cares for him. And
I could see the show playing it I could see the show having Kate stay, and it wouldn't feel like horrible in the way if Claire stayed, it would be like, come on, what the hell?
Yeah. So anyway, then the boat crew, they get to Hydra Island, and we get Sun and Jin reuniting finally.
Finally, it's like, everyone, put your fucking guns down. We have something more important here.
Yes, and Jin promises that they'll never be apart again, which is just, it's it was 2 seasons for us. For them, it was over 3 years.
And also Jin speaking English here. I'm not sure Sun knew he could. And
right, yeah, and he actually has pretty fluent.
Don't care about Sun finally speaking English again because we didn't need that for this scene to be good.
Yeah, we didn't need the subplot, but.
And then Widmore just anyway, I'm gonna have you killed anyway.
Yep, and he fires. Well, he just takes them captive. He doesn't kill them. He just captures them. Well, but then he does fire mortars on the Man in Black's group.
Yep. Okay, well, if he's just taking them captive, it doesn't really matter. There's no difference from him accepting them and him taking them captive because he's still the one with the people with guns. That's not even that meaningful of a difference.
Well, but I'm saying he doesn't attack them like he does with the other group.
I thought he might. I don't even know.
Anyway, and then so Jack gets almost hit by the blast wave of a mortar or something,
Smokey
and then
saves him because Smokey pretends to be a good person, and I like this because it's no distractions. It is main character and main villain are gonna have some talks, I think.
Yes. So
and I think this is where if the show goes the way it's signaling and doesn't try to subvert it, and Jack does become Jacob's replacement because he was meant to be here, which him figuring out that's why he's meant to be here would resolve his arc, kind of obvious. If he does, then I think we're about to see him finally come into that. If talking with the Man in Black, interacting that way, is what gets him to that final step.
Right. So we're kind of in the end game here. Everyone is pretty much on Hydra Island here.
I don't really know what else will happen because we do have several episodes left.
Yeah, I think you're going to be really surprised. You're going to be really surprised, and I'm 85% sure you're going to love what happens. But there is that 15% worry that you're going to hate it.
I think those aren't bad odds.
Yeah. Anyways, do you have anything left to say about these episodes here? I'm mostly just really excited for next week. Next week is going to be so good.
I think that these episodes were pretty good.
Okay, so I hope you join us next time for what will be episode 51 of the podcast, where we will be covering episode 95, The Island, day 11 to 13, and episode 96, The Island, day 14. I'll see you then.